We are your hosts. I am Dr. Jonathan Matthias Lassiter.
And I'm Marquita Moten.
So, who the hell are we?
I am a master's level therapist with a degree in clinical mental health out here saving your mind so you can be sane in this world. Yeah. And I am the proud owner of Crown to Soul Naturals.
Hey.
Body care line. And I am a lot of other things. I'm out here living life. I'm a creator. And it feels good to be that.
Yes, sounds like you're living your life like it's golden.
Okay.
I'm trying to be on that team. I accomplish it some days. I am, as I said, Dr. Jonathan Matthias Lassiter, a licensed clinical psychologist.
Okay.
I mean, you know, an award-winning co-editor of book and a professor. So, I here helping the children understand racial, ethnic identity, human sexuality, abnormal psychology, health psychology, all of the above, So, as the old gospel hymn say, I have some good days and I've had some bad
days. Okay, because just hearing that description made me a little tired.
So, but I love it all because it's all purpose work.
Yeah.
So, what we talking about today, Kita?
I think you should introduce it.
You want me to introduce it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, before we got on here, I was telling you that I recently tweeted about a book, or I should say a write-up of a book that I came across today. So I haven't actually read the book yet. It recently came out, so I want to give that caveat. But from the write-up of the book, that was done on the Roots, it sounds fascinating. I enjoyed the premise, so I wanted to talk about it. So it's called, the title of the book is Black Women, Black Love, America's War on African American Marriage. And it is authored by Dr. Dianne Stewart, who's a professor in the Religion Studies Department at Emory University. Okay. And so this book comes out of Dr. Stewart's research with several Black women and Black heterosexual couples. Over about, I want to say 6 months, I think I read. And so basically, though, her premise is that the high number of Black heterosexual women who desire to have romantic relationships with Black heterosexual men and who do not have those, even despite that desire, that high rate is a unaddressed civil rights issue, in her opinion. So she says, and I'm paraphrasing, so again, go get the book to get the details. But from my understanding of it from reading the write-up, she really talks about how this lack of Black heterosexual relationships is due to racist and patriarchal laws, reproduction and sterilization practices that have been used against Black women, as well as the racist ways in which rape has been used to Black women to increase power over Black women and Black communities via the intimidation factor, and also excuse me, the ways in which those racist and sexual actions and laws and policies destabilize Black families, and also affect the ways in which Black men and women think about relationships and relationship dynamics. So I'm going to read a quote here that I posted on my Twitter that, again, I found very interesting. But she says that the most important obstacle for, and I'm adding this part, for Black male-female love relationships is to tackle what I call, this is her words, Black inherited poverty and wealthlessness. So before we got on here, I asked you, we were talking about, this idea that a lack of Black heterosexual love relationships is due to poverty and wealthlessness and these racial and sexist policies. What's your take on that?
I don't see that as being entirely true.
Okay.
But I'm not going to discount her lived experience or the fact that she researched with these particular couples.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is a factor, but not one that discourages Black romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could disrupt them. And what I mean by that is, of course, financial strain is hard on anybody. Mm-hmm. But like she was saying about historical poverty, I think that historical poverty, from what I know it to be, has never created a situation where Black people were not in relationships with one another. If it did, then you and I wouldn't be here, because we both come from, great grandparents or whatever, great, however many greats ago, who were not people of wealth. Mm-hmm. However, they were in relationships with other Black individuals, and we're here. So I don't, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so I don't think that it was something that would prevent the relationship from forming, but I can see it as a disruptive factor, because if finances are a primary focus in a relationship, then I think that's going to create an emotional strain that then impacts whether or not the relationship lasts, whether or not the relationship is a positive, healthy one. And how that impacts their children.
Right, and I don't think her point, and again, I haven't read the book yet, but I don't think, based on the write-up, I don't think her point was that the sheer lack of financial resources is what contributes to it. But it's also within this context too, because the context of poverty in Black and its effect on Black families and Black relationships in the past was different as access to migration and resources became greater, and also greater for Black women. Like in prior generations, like in the 50s, 40s, 30s, so on and so forth, Black women did not have access to economic resources in the ways in which they have them now. In some instances, Black women have access to them more readily than Black men, in some cases, especially Black heterosexual men. So in that way, we now have a society where Black women don't need Black men for their financial resources in the same ways in which they have in the past. So even though, and because of that, Black women can make choices about the sort of stuff they want to put up with in relationships. Whereas in the past, it was like, well, he's emotionally unavailable, but I still need to put up with this because, he's taking care of me, he's taking care of kids, so on and so forth. But I think part of her point is that because of that financial strain, it places an emphasis on working and the ways of being a man. And I've seen this in my own family lineage, is that the ways in which Black men sometimes, and I'm sure this applies to other men, but we're talking about Black people, right, that Black men define themselves as by how well they can provide for their families. And if the focus is on providing, then, there's all the stresses of dealing with that, because then now you have to deal with a white racist world when you're going out trying to get resources. Then you come home and you've done your job to provide. So now if someone is calling on you for emotional support, emotional expression, it's like, what is that? I'm a man. I did my job. I gave you the resources, get out of here, right? And I think what the things that she's saying is that men, Black heterosexual men in particular, need to be taught how to engage with their emotions. And that because of those circumstances, they are not taught that in a lot of Black households, and then therefore they are not appropriate partners for Black heterosexual women who, because of their more independence now, are less likely to put up with that.
Right. Okay. Well, then she right. It sounds like what she's describing is the evolution of the Black woman and the evolution of the Black man, which have not been occurring at the same rate. Okay. So it's like, as women, there's the societal expectation of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know that that's not always true, but there is that expectation that we're emotional beings and that we're in tune with our emotions, etc. And the opposite is expected of men. And like you already described, that was acceptable for the period of time in which bringing money into the home was sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
However, the evolution of Black women is such that we have been attending college in higher rates and pursuing advanced education and therefore getting certain jobs and blah 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 blah, all equaling to more money. So the emotional component was already there for us per se, and then now we have the financial. Whereas with the men, it's still just the financial. So
Right. They haven't caught up on the emotional side.
exactly. And I think that part of that, well, maybe all of it to a degree, is upbringing. Like you and I have discussed before, during the civil rights movement, during the civil rights movement, and several years after that, the emergence from that particular trauma, the focus of Black people, Black couples, was keeping the family alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when your focus is just baseline existence, then there isn't necessarily attention given to the emotional development of your loved one, regardless of how well intended you are. But I was watching a show,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this Black woman who was an attorney. She made the statement that vulnerability is a luxury.
Mm.
And I think that she is right in a lot of ways. And I also believe that emotional intelligence and emotional expression are also luxuries. And tying in that poverty component, if your primary focus is baseline, if we're going to go ahead and cite a white man right now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the baseline is basic life stuff: food, shelter, and sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So if your struggle is on that foundational portion of the hierarchy of needs, then higher level thinking, emotional intelligence, emotional expression, which is different from emotional intelligence,
yes,
are indeed luxuries. And I think that they are luxuries that have not been taught to Black men growing up. A lot of men, particularly ones in our age group, those born in the 80s and 90s, the millennials, have parents who were in that emerging period of time. So their parents were the ones who were the children of those who were involved in the civil rights movement, the children of the baby boomers, basically. So with that being the case, they weren't necessarily sat down and talked to about life and how they felt about how things were going. And so when they were raising us, some of them did what they saw their parents do. Some did the opposite based on how it made them feel. And some were able to find a balance between a little bit of what their parents did and then finding their own way in their parenting. And so with us, we all over the place.
So what's the solution then? Like, what's the solution?
I think that number one, Black women need to be cognizant of the ways in which they are raising their Black sons.
Okay.
I have a couple of friends with sons, and one of them has a son in college. And she was telling me, we were on the phone just casually talking one day, and she was saying that she was going to his school to pick up his dirty clothes and bring them back to her house and wash them. I said, "You doing what?" And I said, "Okay, girl, think about it this way." I said, "You are a single Black woman and you know what it's like to be in Atlanta trying to date, a lot of these men out here are just ruined. And they ruined because their mamas coddled them too much. So just be mindful that you are raising a Black man who you will want to be worthy of a Black woman of intelligence, of integrity, of character. And she not gonna want to deal with a man who can't wash his own clothes. She is not. So just be aware of that. Raise your son to be the kind of man that, well, one, of course, you want to be obedient to spirit and allow him to develop into the being that he's supposed to be. But foundationally, one who you would be okay with your daughter dating or whatever, yourself dating if he were of appropriate age. You know what I mean? Not suggesting incest, of course, because people like to carry shit to the wrong direction. But you know what I mean? You know, if you have run into men who think that ghosting is normal, who think that ghosting is an appropriate way to break up communication with someone, that's despicable to me. So then when your son is attempting to run away from how he feels, don't allow that. Talk to him about how he feels. Allow him to find the emotion. Don't give it to him. Let him find it. That is what teaches emotional intelligence. Ask him what's going on with him. Okay. We have feeling charts. If you need a copy, let me know. I'll email it to you.
You know, we've been talking about emotional intelligence, but I don't think we've defined it for the audience yet. Like, how are you defining emotional intelligence so people know?
I define emotional intelligence as the awareness of what the feeling is that you're carrying and how you're expressing that feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Okay. So I totally agree with everything that you said, and I actually don't have much to add to that because, again, I'm thinking about my work with my clients, and some of them Black heterosexual men who are out there dating heterosexual women, Black heterosexual women, and the ghosting comes up in sessions. This wanting to run away from feelings comes up in session, and so a lot of the work we do is about identifying emotions and identifying emotional tolerance or distress tolerance, like how to tolerate feeling vulnerable. Because for a lot of Black men, because they have been taught either not taught at all about emotions or taught to only be strong, you know, then like vulnerable emotions can feel very threatening. So we do a lot of work with just like tolerating those and really welcoming them. Like I do exercise where I say, one, let's identify the emotion, and two, now let's welcome it here. You're welcome here. What are you trying to teach me? You know, things like that. So
you said that because as we know, a lot of boys are told, stop all that crying.
I was told that.
Or, you know, shut up, I ain't got time to hear all that and blah, blah, blah. You a boy or whatever. Even I even disagree with adults calling their sons little man. I don't like that because he is a boy. So the expectations of him should be different. And even to have in your mind that this is a miniature man, it still is going to create a certain mentality about his behavior that I don't feel is appropriate.
Yeah.
That's just me personally. I know some people do it anyway, but I think that what you said, making sure that when these men are expressive, that they're not being shut down and they're being shown support by allowing them to be in that feeling and just being present with them, not necessarily having to agree or disagree, but just letting him emote is important. I have a friend who is we're pretty close with one another and we often talk about intimacy. I think his emotional intelligence is pretty good. it could be better for me. No, his emotional expression could be better communicated, I'll say. But he told me that one thing he appreciates most about me is that I just let him talk.
Mm.
And that struck me because I was thinking, like, what would it be like to feel like you have to go through every day of your life not being able to express yourself
Mm-hmm.
and just having someone that you can talk to openly about whatever?
Well,
What
a lot of boys are raised that way. A lot of boys are
exactly?
raised that way. I was raised that way. My father gave me those messages. My mother didn't. And so
Oh,
because I didn't like my father anyway, we good nowadays. But because I didn't like him anyway,
uh-huh.
then I ain't listen to him. I was like, I'm gonna do what my mama said. My mama said I can express my emotions, so I'm gonna express them. I'm just not gonna do them in front of you, you know. But
Yeah.
but yeah, but we're raised that way. We are, yeah.
And I'm sure he
And
got that from his dad, like that, that message. Even me and Whitney being girls, we didn't get emotional support and encouragement from daddy.
yeah,
That was mama.
right.
So it's
So
very interesting.
I mean, and we could talk about this to the cows
Forever.
because it's so much there to unpack. But
Yeah.
we gotta move it on. And so this week though we're doing
Canyon Fire.
cannon fire. So this is the segment where we talk about the books that we're reading or media. And so this is really to help you build your own literary, poetic resources that fortify you as Black people, as spiritual beings. And so what do you have for Cannon Fire? Or would you like for me to go first?
I guess I'll go ahead and go since you prompted me.
Okay.
My pick for Canyon Fire this week is The Alchemist.
Alchemist.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is a wonderful book that is very simple. It's a very easy, simple read, but I feel like it has profound spiritual messages that feel very supportive, in my opinion. And it's one of those books that you can read over and over and over. I've read it at least 3 times, and every time I read it, I hone in on something else that is beneficial to me right then and there. It's very much about finding your path in life and being confident in your path in life and understanding that everything is truly in your favor, whether you realize it or not. So that's my pick, The Alchemist.
I love it. And that's the way I live my life. Like everything works together for the good. And as when I was coming up, they say for the good of those that love the Lord, and so but whether you believe in Lord proper or not, I do think that having that perspective can definitely help, especially in very trying times. So it definitely is a choice of having that perspective. And everyone doesn't choose it. But for the people that don't choose that perspective, I don't know what they're doing. And so good luck. I don't know how you're making it because if I didn't have that perspective, I'd be ready to jump off the bridge. So good luck. But no judgment, but I just don't know how you do it.
Yeah. And we don't know that they are.
I don't know how you do
We don't know what they're doing.
it. But
What
my
does?
pick is an oldie but goodie,
Yes.
classic. Lynn Harris, Not a Day Goes By. And this
Yes.
is, for everyone that knows me, knows that E, as I call is probably the first author that I started standing for way back in the day. So long story short, growing up, Black, Saint, and loving boy that was, having a hard time struggling with the whole sexuality piece. In ninth grade, one of my friends, who's now Amber but was then Brandon, he gave me this book who by Lynn Harris, and changed my life because Lynn Harris was writing about Black, gay, and bisexual men at a time where, you know, people weren't really writing about them, and the types of Black, gay, and bisexual men he was writing about were like middle-class men who were not, some of them were effeminate, some of them were somewhere in the middle, and some of them are masculine, but they weren't all hairdressers, they weren't all stricken with HIV, which were the messages I was getting, which had me terrified. Before coming to Lynn Harris. And so this particular book, though, is about John Basil Henderson, who is a sports agent, and he is like the finest man in the Lynn Harris universe.
Okay.
And so I remember Elin came to Georgia College.
Yes, and we got to meet him.
And we got to meet him. I got a picture with him. And so, but I remember he was reading, I don't know if it was from this book, but he was reading from a particular book, and he was like, and Basil, and we were like, who?
And we were like, Basil?
Who is that?
Right.
Because the man's name was spelled Basil, and you know,
we were calling him Basil.
So we was calling him Basil the whole time when we were reading, and he was like, and John Basil. We were like, who? But but so this is about John Basil or Basil Henderson, as I still call him Basil. And his relationship with Yancey Harrington Braxton, who is a mess and just all around diva, insecure, and treats people horrible. But, you know, once she gets some therapy, you know, she got some goodness inside her. So I recommend this. It's fun, easy. It's like reading a soap opera. It doesn't require a lot of brain cells, and it transports you to another world. And so I love it. That's my choice for Canon.
Yay.
All right, so now let's do our replay and wrap it up for the folks. So what are our take homes?
So take homes this week. Basically, just be compassionate with your man. If you're a single Black woman out here in these streets trying to date a single Black man, first of all, make sure he's single. We didn't even talk about the deceit that could be involved. We might have to do a part 2. But anyway, just be compassionate with him when it comes to his emotional development, because we don't know where he is. We don't know the messages he's been taught. But those are things that can be revealed throughout the relationship. Now, that's not saying compromise your standards, but it is saying to have some compassion, because he hasn't necessarily been given the benefits that you have when it comes to emotional intelligence and emotional expression. I believe in leading by example. So prompt him to be more emotionally expressive by being more emotionally expressive yourself. We can talk about that too.
And accepting, because I've heard some Black women talk about they don't like it when their man is emotionally expressive. Then you wonder why your relationship not working. So also be accepting of your man being emotionally expressive and vulnerable.
Yes. And if you choose not to be accepting, then just know you're gonna get the type of man that don't care about your feelings, because he doesn't care about his own. And that is a choice. That is a choice that you have. But just be aware of what you're gonna get in return.
Yeah, and I think I believe the people would do the work. It is a luxury for a lot of us, but it has to start somewhere. It's something that we have to prioritize. Otherwise, we're never going to grow in our relationships as people. In our relationships, it is essential. It is essential. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily mean coming to see a therapist like me who will teach you, but I will charge. But you can do it again by picking up some books, you know, by watching YouTube videos about emotional intelligence, expressiveness, so on and so forth. Getting this woman's book and reading it and seeing if it resonates with you, Dr. Stewart's book. So there's work that we can do that is, you know, across the socioeconomic gamut, whether it requires particular resources or not. But the work has to be done. We have to prioritize the emotional healing work. And so I'll leave folks with that. All right, then. So I think that's going to do it for us for this week. And so, again, be sure to like, subscribe, share with your mom and them, your friend, all of them. And, let us know what you think. Leave some comments to let us know how these things are influencing your life, what we're talking about, and things that you want us to talk about. All right. So I love you, Keita. I'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.